The Hamilton Tiger-Cats take on the Calgary Stampeders Saturday at Ron Joyce Stadium. I'm here with the Spec Steve Milne. And Steve, we've written this story before. Close loss last week, injuries, lineup changes, and a game that the Ticats kind of need to win to get back into it.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that, different things every week. I mean, last time they played these guys, it's the botched field goal. It tells you overall when you add it up, they're not good enough, and they're indicating by what they've been doing, I think, Drew, that they feel the same way. That they're not quite, even though they've had injuries, they're not quite where they need to be personnel-wise or schematic-wise. And I think they've indicated that with some of the changes they've made this week.
Some of those changes include Keontae Tripp at defensive end. It includes Luke Tasker in for Kerry Koch. Some of those are injury-related, but some of them are just about performance.
I think so. One thing about getting Tasker back in, as you've mentioned many times before, every quarterback on this team is really comfortable with him, but nobody more than Danny Lefevre getting the ball to him. There's just something that I think he likes about him. Offense, that said, hasn't been a problem, I don't think, the last couple of weeks, other than some timing things. They're not getting going early enough. There's too many 2-and-outs early in the game. That means they're always running uphill. That means the running game sometimes goes out the window. That's not that when they fall behind by a little more than a touchdown in this league, you don't see the running game. And a lot of the strengths on this team, a lot of the versatility on offense, to me, is based on the fact that they can do a lot of things. And if you don't start with the run, and of course you're going to have it from the quarterback when Lefevre's in there, but if you don't start with a bona fide run to the tailback, then a lot of that stuff like counters goes and zone reads and all of that stuff. It helps to have a quarterback who's truly committed to running, but I think if they've got to establish the tailback running game more.
Well, let's talk about that tailback. C.J. Gable will miss this game due to injury. Moses Madu gets the start, his first start since high school, and he brings a lot of what Gable brings to the table, but I'm not sure it's the complete package that Gable brings.
Well, and you asked in the press conference on Friday about that, and you asked specifically about the comparison and blocking, and I think Kent was pretty honest there to say it's pretty hard to find a tailback that not only blocks physically the way that C.J. Gable does, but mentally. And I've raved a couple of times about when he's cut in front of the quarterback and the timing and still picking up one of the fastest or top couple of fastest guys in the league at blitzing and getting them off their balance. They're going to miss that end of it. But that said, I like the guy's confidence. I like Madu's confidence. You want that in a tailback. You want that, I am unstoppable. And he's not quite that far, but the confidence is really there. I didn't realize he hadn't started since high school. I knew he hadn't played a game until he played last week. He really hadn't played any games since about 2010 at the end of his college career, but I never realized he didn't start all the way through college. Although when you're at Oklahoma, and you're playing tailback, I mean, they probably go through 6 in a year because of the kind of offense that they've historically played there. So who is the starter when you're at Oklahoma? He's got a lot to prove, and we've talked a lot about this in the past. This franchise, probably most franchises if I looked at it closely, but in the last 3 or 4 years, this franchise has got a lot out of players with quote-unquote chips on their shoulders, something to prove. There's a lot of that in the CFL because that's how Americans end up here. But when you look at Gable is a classic example. When you look at there's 3 or 4 others right now. They escape me. Arlen Bruce. Arlen Bruce is probably the one they got the most out of with a chip on his shoulder.
Well, DeAndre Cobb was another guy.
And they need to get that on Saturday out of this tailback. They need that extra play. And they also need better timing. You can't. It's sort of like when I think about baseball and R.A. Dickey, and yes, he's got this ERA, but how come he's only got this many wins? Because he gives up the hit at that key time. And they've got to start making not just the good play, but the play at the key time. To me, that's at the beginning and the end.
I'm not sure that we can talk about the Ticats right now without talking about the stadium.
Right.
More speculation today about whether or not the stadium would be ready in time for Labor Day. I won't ask you if you think it'll be ready because I don't think anybody can answer that question. But do you think it's having an impact on the team?
I do. I honestly do, and I felt this all season. I think that there are a lot of little things, and part of it could be the way they get started in a game, because they never really had a home. You can call Mac home, and yes, we make it our home. And really, I'm not criticizing this team. I think, and Kent, I think from top down, given what they've had to work with here. But this is now, again, half again as long as the Chicago Bears went through in 2002 when they had to leave. And it's the only other comparison. The BC comparison from a couple of years ago when they all played in the same town as the stadium was, that's not the same comparison. The better comparison to what the Ticats have had to go through is 2002 and the Chicago Bears. And they went from 13 wins to 6 or 5. And they only had a couple of injuries. And they only had to do it for how many home games they play, and they play 8 and then 2. So they had 10 games. These guys now have played
season
and a half, and the season's longer, right? And
Yep.
they made the playoffs.
Yep.
So they also played a playoff game, and they played an exhibition game. All of that stuff, that is a long, long time to have nowhere to call really home. Their home stadium is this place right here. And really thank God for that idea, because I really think they would have been in trouble without that. And this is a long way of saying, yes, I do believe that there's a seepage in there, that they don't have that extra at certain times. So I don't know if you can relate that directly to the stadium, but it has to be in there somewhere. This is an unusual situation. Just because an unusual situation has become usual doesn't make it any more sort of unusual.
Make sure to check out Saturday's Spectator for a full game preview. Reporting from 1 Jarvis Street with the Spec Steve Milton, I'm Drew Edwards.